For more than 4 decades, John Goodman has been recognized as one of Hollywood's most dependable faces. He has enjoyed the kind of career many actors dream of, built a lasting family life, and earned the respect of both his colleagues and audiences. Yet at the age of 74, looking back on his life, Goodman admits there is still one thing that troubles him more than anything else. Surprisingly, it is not money, fame, or the alcohol addiction that haunted him for many years. Instead, it is a decision, and a relationship whose outcome, even today, he still does not know whether he could ever have changed. John Goodman was born on the 20th of June, 1952, in the city of Afton, Missouri. His childhood did not begin with joyful memories, but with an overwhelming loss. His father died of a heart attack when John was only about 2 years old, far too young to retain any memories of him. From then on, his mother, Virginia Roos, worked a variety of jobs, from waitress to sales assistant, while raising 3 children on her own. Life was far from comfortable for the family. His mother often worked long hours every day just to cover basic living expenses, while John grew up in a household where frugality and self-reliance were highly valued. Those early years shaped his down-to-earth, sincere personality and gave him a lifelong appreciation for the value of hard work. However, Goodman's childhood was also marked by insecurity. He was larger than most children his age and often became the target of teasing at school. In many interviews later in life, he admitted that he frequently felt lonely and was constantly worried about his appearance. Searching for a place where he truly belonged, John joined the Boy Scouts and spent much of his time reading comic books, watching television, and listening to music. Comedy films, entertainment programs, and jazz music introduced by his older brother nurtured his imagination from an early age. While attending secondary school, Goodman took up American football and quickly became one of the school's standout athletes. At the time, he believed sport would be the path to a better future. Little did he know that an injury a few years later would bring that dream to an end, while unexpectedly opening the door to an entirely different life. After graduating from secondary school, John Goodman received an American football scholarship to Missouri State University. At the time, he believed sport would allow him to transform his life and build a successful career. However, all those plans quickly fell apart when he suffered a serious knee injury, tearing his anterior cruciate ligament, commonly known as the ACL. The injury all but ended his dream of becoming a professional athlete. It was one of the most difficult periods of Goodman's life. He later admitted that he felt completely lost after his greatest ambitions suddenly disappeared. Yet it was during that very time that he happened to enroll in drama classes at university and stepped onto a stage for the first time. Unlike the football field, where he had to prove his physical strength, the stage gave Goodman an entirely new feeling. He realized he could make audiences laugh, move them emotionally, and hold their attention using nothing more than dialogue and expression. He later said that he was almost spellbound from the very first time he performed. In 1975, after graduating, John Goodman moved to New York to pursue an acting career. The early years were anything but easy. He lived in Hell's Kitchen and took on every kind of job to make ends meet, including waiting tables, making deliveries, and working as a security guard, while constantly attending auditions and performing in off-Broadway productions. Despite countless rejections, Goodman never gave up. He believed that if he kept persevering, his opportunity would eventually come. And indeed, only a few years later, what seemed like a very small role began to change the course of his life completely. After years of persistence in New York, John Goodman gradually secured his first opportunities on screen. One of his first notable leading roles came in True Stories, 1986, directed by David Byrne. Although it was not a box office blockbuster, the film allowed Goodman to prove that he was suited not only to comedy, but also to portraying ordinary, emotionally rich characters. The real breakthrough came a year later, when directing brothers Joel and Ethan Coen cast him in Raising Arizona, 1987. His portrayal of Gail Snoats, somewhat foolish yet highly distinctive criminal, immediately left a strong impression on both audiences and critics. It also marked the beginning of a creative partnership between John Goodman and the Coen brothers that would span several decades. Following that success, Goodman went on to appear in many of their acclaimed films, including Barton Fink, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and Inside Llewyn Davis. Every character was completely different, yet he consistently brought an authenticity and memorability that made each performance stand out. John Goodman has often said that what he enjoyed most about working with the Coen brothers was their meticulous preparation. Their scripts were virtually complete from the outset. Every line of dialogue was carefully refined, and actors were encouraged to respect the original script rather than improvise excessively. That working environment allowed Goodman to make the very most of his acting abilities. While his film career continued to flourish, another opportunity was waiting for him on television. It was that role which transformed John Goodman from a highly respected actor into a familiar face in millions of American homes. In 1988, John Goodman auditioned for the television series Roseanne. From the very first time he performed alongside Roseanne Barr, the chemistry between them was unmistakable. The producers needed very little time to make their decision because they believed they had found a married couple audiences would genuinely believe. In the series, Goodman played Dan Connor, a devoted husband, a loving father, and the backbone of a working-class family. He was not a perfect hero. Dan could be short-tempered, exhausted, and make mistakes, but he always put his family first. It was that authenticity that made the character one of the most beloved television fathers in America. Roseanne quickly became a cultural phenomenon, portraying the lives of working-class families with their financial struggles, employment challenges, and family relationships in ways that very few sitcoms of the time dared to explore. At the heart of that success was John Goodman, whose natural, relatable, and deeply emotional performance was widely regarded as the soul of the series. The role of Dan Connor also earned him widespread acclaim and 7 consecutive Emmy Award nominations. However, what surprised many people was that Goodman never won in the category, despite consistently being regarded by critics as one of the finest television actors of his generation. For John Goodman, Roseanne was far more than just a successful television series. It was where he spent nearly a decade working, built close relationships, and created the role that became inseparably linked to his name. He could never have imagined that years later, the very same program would also bring one of the greatest upheavals of his life. While audiences saw a cheerful and energetic John Goodman on screen, in private, he was quietly battling alcohol addiction for many years. The pressures of fame, an exhausting work schedule, and personal insecurities led him to rely increasingly on alcohol as a way of coping. Goodman later admitted that there were periods when he drank almost every day. He even arrived on set on occasions before he was completely sober. What he regrets most is that he was still able to do his job, convincing himself that everything remained under control. That false sense of control turned his alcohol addiction into a trap that lasted for many years. By 2007, after realizing that his health and personal life were being seriously affected, John Goodman made the decision to stop drinking. He sought professional treatment and has remained sober ever since. In many interviews, Goodman has admitted that it was one of the most important decisions of his life, because without making that change, he is not sure he would have been able to continue his career. What is particularly remarkable is that despite facing such personal battles, Goodman always remained highly professional in his work. Colleagues have often described him as someone who prepared meticulously for every role and always showed respect for the entire cast and crew. It was that attitude that allowed him to maintain his reputation as one of the most trusted actors among Hollywood directors for decades. Yet John Goodman's greatest challenge was still ahead of him. In 2018, an unexpected incident changed everything associated with Roseanne almost overnight. In 2018, after being off the air for more than 2 decades, Roseanne returned to television and quickly became one of the most watched programs in the United States. The premiere of the new season attracted more than 27 million viewers, creating hope for a highly successful new chapter for the entire production team. But everything came to an end overnight. A controversial tweet posted by Roseanne Barr prompted ABC to cancel the program immediately. For John Goodman, it was a shock he had never anticipated. In a later interview, he admitted that he was devastated for nearly 2 weeks because it felt as though he had lost something that had been part of his life for so many years. What broke Goodman's heart was not only the cancellation of the series, it was also the breakdown of a long-standing friendship. Although he did not agree with what had happened, he repeatedly expressed his affection for Roseanne Barr and said it was deeply painful to see everything end that way. Afterwards, he continued with The Connors, the new series created after the character of Roseanne was written out of the story. The program remained successful and ran for several seasons, but Goodman admitted that it no longer felt the same. An important part of the series and an important part of his own life had been changed forever. As he reached the age of 74, John Goodman began looking back on everything with a greater sense of peace. He was no longer overly concerned with awards or professional achievements. Instead, what troubled him most were the relationships that could never remain as they once had been. When asked what occupied his thoughts the most at the age of 74, John Goodman did not speak about the roles he had missed or the years he had spent struggling with alcohol. He had already overcome those chapters of his life and learned to accept them as part of his journey. What he regrets more than anything is the loss of a relationship that had once meant so much to him. After everything that happened with Roseanne, Goodman repeatedly expressed that he still held respect and affection for Roseanne Barr, even though they were no longer traveling the same path as they once had. He understands that there are some events no one has the power to change, and that sometimes even a friendship spanning decades can come to an end because of a single moment. The only thing he can do is hold on to the good memories and continue moving forward. Perhaps that is also the greatest lesson John Goodman has learned after more than half a century in the profession. Success will come and go. Fame may change with time, but the people who have shared the journey with us are what truly matter. And if he had to look back on his entire life, perhaps what weighs most heavily on his heart is not what he has lost, but the things that were once beautiful and can never be brought back. At the age of 74, John Goodman continues to work, continues to appear in new films, and continues to enjoy the respect of both his colleagues and audiences. After more than 40 years in the industry, he no longer feels the need to prove anything to anyone. What matters most to him now is being able to do the work he loves and spend time with the people who truly matter. Looking back on his life, John Goodman understands that no one has a perfect journey. He has faced alcohol addiction, periods of uncertainty, and the pain of watching a long-standing relationship fall apart. But rather than allowing those experiences to define who he is, he has chosen to accept them as life's lessons. Perhaps that is also why John Goodman remains so widely admired today. It is not only because he is a gifted actor, but also because he has always been willing to face his mistakes, accept his losses, and continue moving forward with sincerity. If John Goodman's story has given you something to reflect on, please share this video and let us know in the comments. In your opinion, what matters most when looking back on a life? Success, or the people who have shared the journey with us? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more authentic stories about the Hollywood legends you admire.